Okay, continuing on page 185, we're talking about how to acquire software. And there's one more twist to this, which is not in the book, and that is, let's say, for example, I'm running a tire and lube shop, and then my competitor is running another tire and lube shop across town. And we both went and bought the exact same piece of software, a commercial off-the-shelf piece of software, COTS, commercial off-the-shelf. So my accounts payable and my inventory and my the analysis tools that tell me how to do pricing is identical to this guy's. So what's my competitive advantage over him if we're both using the exact same piece of software? See? So an awful lot of companies, when there's competition going on, they try not to use commercial off the shelf for like setting prices, because they know if I'm using that tool to set prices and they're using that tool to set prices, then no one's going to have an advantage over the other. Okay, let's continue. The next thing to talk about is application service providers. And unfortunately, ASP is a term that has, that three-letter acronym is used for lots of things. So I typically don't ever say ASP, an application service provider. But what that basically means is, instead of me going into my office and saying, well, okay, I need to buy a server, and I need to buy some server operating system, and then I need to buy commercial off-the-shelf software, and I need to install it all, and I need to hook it all up to all my machines. You go to an application service provider and say, I want my accounting software. So, for example, QuickBooks. QuickBooks is a fantastic program, by the way. You could install QuickBooks on your machines, great. But there's a business flavor of that from the same company, the Intuit company. There's another flavor of that which allows me to just run this in the cloud. So I don't have to do anything. I don't have to buy a server. I don't have to buy installer server. So I don't have to do patches and upgrades and security scan. Someone else takes care of all of that. And all I do is connect to their server over the internet, and I am done. So if you're a small business, an application service provider provides you freedom, because you don't have to do anything other than pay the bill. And that's it. You don't have any responsibility for viruses and updates and all the rest of that junk. So lots of companies in here that provide this kind of services, and mostly they're in the financial and business kind of environment, as you can probably imagine. Okay. Continuing. So now we're talking about the personal application software, and again, this is stuff you've already heard about, word processing and spreadsheets and those kinds of things. I'm going to skip through a lot of this stuff. You guys know what all this stuff is, spreadsheets and databases and presentation, blah, 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 blah. I must stop and talk about software suites. It's very popular now that instead of buying just a word processing package or just a spreadsheet package, that you buy it in a bundle. Microsoft Office, for example, you could buy the individual pieces, or you can buy an entire box that contains disks that has the entire suite, or you can go the cloud route again and buy Office 365 subscription. Remember the service level architecture kind of thing? It's a subscription. So I buy it and I pay $100 a year, and that gives me full version of Microsoft Office on up to 5 machines in my house. Okay, that is fantastic. So instead of me buying, just plunking down money for software, and they only get my money once, here they get my money every single year. Okay, but it's all put together in a software suite, and most people are already familiar with software suite. So I'm kind of gonna continue a wee bit. So, and then to talk about the cloud again, web suites, Office 365. Now, I'll admit, when I first saw Office 365 being talked about, I thought that meant that everything was going to be done over the cloud. I had no idea that when you did this, you physically got Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Notepad, Outlook, Access, Publisher, and whatever the hell that is, physically installed on your machine. I don't know. So I'm glad I was wrong. But yes, it physically gets installed. I'm going to talk about cloud computing a little bit more. So I'm still on page 187. But there's one part of cloud computing which is so profound, and I'm kind of annoyed that the people haven't really talked about it in the book much. And here's how it goes. I have a SQL server in the cloud, and so it's just a server that I use for testing. It's not, I don't have a business or anything, so it's just for testing. But the idea is, because this is in the cloud, I can go in and ramp up or ramp down how robust this server is. Now, when I wanted to produce a server, all I did was, other than pay them money, I basically went in and said, I'd like a server. And I pushed a couple of buttons, and presto changeo, a server magically appeared. Where, physically, where is this server? I don't have a clue. Okay? It's somewhere in the cloud. I don't know. I don't even know what state it's in. Okay. So I'm going to click on this guy and just show you a little bit about the resources. One of the things is this pricing tier. Okay, what this basically means is right now I'm in a test environment, and so I only have up to 2 gigabytes. I don't have any replication going on because it's just a test environment, and it's costing me $4.99 a month. Okay. Now in a production environment, I would go in here and say, well, wait a minute now. I need more. So I need 50 simultaneous transactions. It's called a DTU, database throughput unit. It's a little hard to describe it. For purposes here, let's just say concurrent users. If I was expecting 50 concurrent users, well, then I'd have to pay more. I'd have to pay $75 a month. And to convert this guy, all I have to do is just click. That's all I have to do is click and then say, hit the select button, which I'm not going to do right now. I hit select, and it'll automatically bump up my server. And then after the heavy use is down, I can scrunch it back down to 5 concurrent users. So I can go from 50 users to 5 users. Now, there are some limits. For example, there's like a limit of 4 times you can do this in a 24-hour period. But the idea is I'm only paying for how much I use. There's no other environment other than the cloud that can do this. This is an important concept. Ding, 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 ding. The most important concept of cloud computing is its ability to automatically scale. I don't have to shut down my server, my SQL server, to do this. This is live. My SQL server is up and running, and all I do is go over here and click a couple of buttons, and shell out a few bucks. And then presto changeo for the month of whatever, in the month of August, I can get 50 concurrent users with no trouble at all. And when that peak load is gone, I go back and click back down to something a little bit. Okay, I only need 10. So I go from $75 a month to $15 a month. So this is an important concept in cloud computing. Okay, let's continue. All right. Next thing to talk about is mobile. We talked about this in some way of looking. So on page 194, here's this category. And you know what we're talking about. I'm not even going to bother to expand this thing out. But the thing is, there's a lot of price wars going on in the mobile environment. Before mobile came out, you would never think about going to the local software store and picking up a box and having on the box say, this is worth 99 cents. That just didn't happen, okay? But in the mobile world, the average price for an application is about $1. So that has put an awful lot of pressure on people because they're thinking now, wait a minute, I just bought something very similar to this, on my tablet. It was $1. Now you want me to spend $200 for this? You've got to be kidding. So that mental thinking about how things cost in the mobile world has really put pressure on the non-mobile world for have their prices a lot more reasonable. So yes, different categories of mobile applications, but that's kind of boring. Next they talk about is work group. So again, work groups are designed things like messaging and email and collaborative software. In my place of business, what we did is I had all my employees put their leave schedule on a calendar, and not everyone could see everyone else's leave calendar, but I could. So everyone would put their leave out there, And then I would go up there and look and go, ooh, looks like we got way too many people, taking off next Friday. I'm going to have to go talk to somebody. So that kind of sharing software, pretty good stuff. And so SharePoint Services is a tool for doing collaboration. The real holy grail for a work group application is the idea that I can have a single document being edited by two different people at the same time. Now, this has been a very elusive goal for quite some time, and just now has become relatively available. So, for example, I could have an Excel spreadsheet up on SharePoint Services, and I could be working on one sheet, editing and changing, and somebody else could be working on the same one at the same time, editing someplace else on the same spreadsheet, and when we close the document, all the changes are lined up. That has been a very tough thing to accomplish. Whew. It's been around a long time coming. In the enterprise world, I'm not going to talk about this, but you know what we're talking about. We're talking about, accounts payable and invoicing and receipt and payroll, blah, 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 blah. All the things you'd expect the businesses to do. Now, you don't necessarily have to have this kind of software on, a big mainframe or a big enterprise. They're talking about not size here. They're talking about function. These are enterprise functions. You would still need accounts payable, accounts receivable, and payroll, even if you had like 3 employees. Okay, so this could be running on a single little PC in the corner, but it's the enterprise software that they're talking about. Okay, I'm moving on. Once again, this little thing talking about spending, this is important. Yes, software costs money, and it costs a lot more money than most people think. So how much money did you spend on middleware? I suspect that's going down. And custom-built software, I suspect that's going down. Operating system, that's probably about the same. And I expect the application software to be taking this over. So this is business by type of, spending by type of software. So application software is probably the king, and probably will remain the king for quite some time. The next thing we're going to talk about is kind of a weird twist in this whole chapter. It talks about the programming languages. So programming languages, now this is not a programming course, I'm not going to get into the weeds, but basically what we're talking about is that there was an evolution of programming that took place. And here's this goofy little chart that basically says, in the beginning, you had machine language, which means I would program a computer by flipping switches and pushing buttons. And it was just ones and zeros. And then we had another generation which allowed me to, instead of typing in 10014 or 111, as in binary, I would say move. And so that was a heck of a lot better, because trust me, move is a lot easier for me to remember than 0110111. And then later on they came up with higher level languages, and so instead of saying move, I'd say I declare a variable and set it equal to 4, that kind of stuff. Fourth generation, which is all about querying in databases and print employees if gross pay greater than 1,000. And this beyond fourth, which is kind of a stupid term, by the way, what they're basically talking about is natural and intelligent languages. I don't know. If hours work greater than 40, then pay an employee overtime. That really doesn't exist. Not really, really, really. So there really isn't, beyond fourth. Those things are just happening just in normal programming languages. Okay, this is a good place to stop for the 15-minute mark, and we'll polish this thing off in just a few.